It was a question so simple, so pure, that it stopped a crowded room in its tracks. An 8-year-old girl, clutching her grandmother's worn Bible, stood before one of the most powerful men in the world and asked a question that would leave everyone in tears. What happened next wasn't just a moment, it was a revelation. The setting was a small church fellowship hall in Shreveport, Louisiana. The air was thick with the hum of folding chairs scraping against the floor and the low murmur of curious conversations. The room, usually reserved for Sunday potlucks and Bible studies, was packed to the brim. At the front stood Donald Trump, his larger-than-life presence filling the modest space. But tonight, he wasn't the brash, fast-talking figure the world was used to. Tonight, he was different, quieter, more reflective. And then there was Lily. Dressed in her best Sunday dress, her small hands gripping an old leather-bound Bible, she sat quietly beside her mother. The Bible had belonged to her grandmother, a woman of deep faith who had passed away just a year earlier. Lily had carried it with her everywhere since, as if holding it close kept her grandmother's memory alive. For weeks, she had rehearsed her question, scribbling it in her notebook, whispering it to herself at night. It wasn't a question about politics or policies. It was something deeper, something that had been weighing on her young heart. As the evening unfolded, Trump spoke about his usual topics: America, the future, his plans. The crowd nodded politely, but the energy was subdued. Lily waited, her heart pounding, her fingers tracing the faded gold letters on the Bible's cover. When the floor opened for questions, adults lined up to ask about taxes, jobs, and the economy. But Lily, with a courage far beyond her years, finally stood and made her way to the microphone. The room fell silent as she approached. She was so small, so fragile-looking, but there was a quiet strength in her eyes. When she reached the mic, she looked up at Trump and asked the question that would change everything. "Mr. Trump, what does God mean to you?" The room froze. For a man known for his quick comebacks and unwavering confidence, Trump didn't respond right away. Instead, he looked at her, really looked at her, and something in his demeanor shifted. The bravado faded, replaced by a vulnerability few had ever seen. He leaned against the podium, his voice softer, quieter, as he began to speak. "That's a big question," he said, his tone almost gentle. "And it's not one I've always had the answer to." He paused, his eyes drifting to the Bible in her hands. "When I was about your age," he continued, "I had a lot of questions about God too. My parents took me to church every Sunday, but I didn't always understand what it all meant. My father used to tell me that faith is like a ladder. You climb it one step at a time, even when you're scared you might fall." The crowd was spellbound. This wasn't the Trump they were used to. This was raw, unfiltered, and deeply personal. "As I got older," he went on, "I faced a lot of challenges. Losses. Failures. Times when I thought God had abandoned me. But I've come to realize that faith isn't about having all the answers. It's about trusting that there's a purpose, even when you can't see it." Lily's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look away. She clung to every word, her grandmother's Bible pressed tightly to her chest. Trump's voice grew firmer. "God, to me, is that purpose. He's the reminder that even when we fall, even when we fail, we're not done. He's the one who tells us to keep climbing, even when the ladder feels like it's going to break." The room was utterly still. No one coughed, no one shifted in their seats. It was as if the entire world had paused to listen. But then, Trump did something no one expected. He stepped away from the podium and knelt down to Lily's level. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Lily," she whispered. "Lily," he repeated, his voice warm. "You've got more courage than most adults I know. Don't ever lose that." The crowd erupted into applause, but Lily didn't seem to notice. She was too busy wiping her tears, a small smile breaking through. Her mother pulled her close, whispering words of pride and love. As the evening wound down, the room felt different. Strangers who had walked in as individuals now lingered, sharing stories, hugs, and even tears. Lily's question had done more than spark a conversation, it had opened hearts. And as Trump left the stage, he turned back one last time, his gaze lingering on Lily. "Thank you," he said quietly, though it was unclear if he was speaking to her or to something greater. The message of the night was clear: sometimes, the bravest questions come from the smallest voices. And in those questions, we find the answers we didn't even know we were searching for. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to reflect on your own faith. Share it with someone who might need it today. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories that inspire, challenge, and bring us closer together.